once we get up there. Hello and welcome to Social Media Business. This is the podcast about social media and business and how business is using social media. And as always, I've got Dave with me. Hi, Dave.
Hi, Laurel. How are you?
Good. How's your week been?
Yeah, pretty good. Pretty good. Busy with State of Origin and stuff like that.
State of Origin, is that a sports match?
Yes. For anyone not from Australia, that is one of the large sporting events of the year. State versus state, Queensland versus New South Wales. So, yeah, that was first one was in Brisbane last night, and Queensland lost to New South Wales. But there's 2 more games to go. So.
And I should point out, people, that Dave is based in Queensland and they lost last night, and
Yeah.
I'm based in New South Wales and we won last night, and I couldn't care less about football, but that's good news.
Yes. But that's all right. We've won.
It's so tribal. I mean, we talk about marketing segmentation and market to these people but not these people. And for me, football is the perfect analogy of you're for this tribe but not this tribe. You're one of the problems with marketing segmentation is that companies do it and say they know their segments, and then they still do a broadcast campaign to everyone instead of saying you're welcome, you're not welcome. And football, I think, has got that now. So, yeah, I hate football. And if I could remove any reference of State of Origin from my Twitter stream or my Facebook stream, I so would.
You can mute hashtags and that sort of stuff.
And the mute options now, anybody who likes sport, I can mute them for a while.
Right.
So, what are we going to talk about today? Have you got anything you'd like to throw in, Dave?
Not at this point, but we were mentioning last week social TV, and there had been a question last week about how much the Twitter conversation affects a broadcast, or how useful it is. And I'd mentioned some reports done by some researchers at the university here. And
what sort of things did they discover?
So they discovered exactly
how Twitter impacts TV viewership or engagement or discussions around the TV, or?
Well, both discussions around, but could also predict ratings, really, with a fair degree of accuracy. Could predict ratings based on Twitter conversations around a show, using a huge amount of data, like the full fire hose of Twitter data, and pulling out the hashtags and topics and things related to all sorts of different TV shows, both here in Australia but also in the US. So I've done a lot of work with the US TV market, but in Australia as well.
I read the reports by Deloitte and CRE, and the latest report from CRE says that about 16% of people will second screen, meaning that while they're watching TV, they're doing something else.
Yeah.
I guess that even if people are watching this video podcast, they might be doing something else as well. Stop that. Pay attention. And it's interesting to me that about 8% of those were Facebooking and tweeting about the shows. So it's, the rest of it, I think, was about anything else, that they're just talking, they're doing emails or whatever while they're watching the show. It's background noise. So is, in a sense, given this is a really small percentage, 6%, 8%, depending which report you read, do you think that the second screen analysis measurements, social media measurement metric systems, or what they're doing really is using the internet more as a large focus group, because you're never going to capture 100% of people. You're just going to get these kind of reasonably small numbers.
Yeah, but they're people who are committed very engaged. So I think that's probably the highest value in the research of and following of those conversations, is that those are probably your most engaged viewers, because they're having conversations with people at the same time, and also broadcasting your, promoting your show for you while it's happening, or even before it's happening. So for me, I would see that as huge value in engagement for a TV show. Any amount that you can increase that, you can only positively affect your viewership, really.
I guess if you don't have your brand leaders there, if you don't have the people that engage with their networks, then it's a good indication that the show is not getting traction and won't get traction, because nobody's saying, hey, this is great. I found out about Orphan Black from so many people online, and I was completely unaware. We can't get SBS where I live in the Blue Mountains outside of Sydney,
Right.
so I had to hear about Orphan Black from somewhere else, and I wasn't going to see it on an SBS ad. Well, what an amazing series. I love it. But I do, sometimes we have to explain to businesses that even if they only have one customer on Twitter, there's a really good chance that that one customer that's on Twitter is the most vocal, the most passionate, the most connected, and that they're sitting at tables with PR people, or the Twitter table with PR people and journalists and other potential customers and competitors and vendors. And so ignoring them because they represent one is really old marketing statistics. You have to sort of look at what's the influence of this person, and are they passionate enough? Can they be a brand ambassador? What are they going to do with your products online? So, yeah, I think the same thing works with TV.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so we've enabled the Q&A app here to take some questions. So I'd be interested to know what sort of questions people out there have. That would be good. Live, we did take some questions in last week, but I'll get to those in a moment. One thing I do want to talk about is what are we going to do about the President Cheese scenario? And if you haven't heard about President Cheese, there's been a big story breaking across all of media that they took, how many days was it? 45 days to craft one tweet that got no attention whatsoever. It's got a lot of attention now. So if you believe that all press is good press, then all social media is good social media, including bad social media. But the whole idea that it takes 45 days to create something that's 140 characters or less. So there's a couple of things here. One is, why is this such an interesting story? Secondly, is it in any way beat up story? And thirdly, what was wrong with this tweet? Forget everything else, whether it took a second to create or took weeks or months to create. What's wrong with this tweet that it didn't get the traction that it could have got, or what it should have done? So, Dave, are you familiar with this tweet? Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah. So.
Do you want me to put it up on the screen?
Read about it in the last couple of days.
I'll put it up on the screen if you like. Yeah, just be easier to show it that way. Then we go to there. So there's the tweet there. Sharing a camembert with friends, how generous, get the best flavour by serving at room temperature, # art of cheese. And then the picture itself is loaded up on twitter.com's pictures.
Yep. So I think it came first from Business Insider, and the media agency tried to that came up with that tweet tried to backtrack and say that it was just a clickbait headline, really taken out of proportion, but they still do have within their social media agency, who obviously is representing this President Cheese brand.
I think they're called Huge, aren't they? The Huge
Yeah,
agency.
takes up to 45 days to approve and publish a single post.
Mm-hmm.
And they've tried to say that that's taken out of context, and not every single tweet takes that long, and that sort of thing. But still, I don't know how any tweet can take that long, really.
Well, I mean, we don't do one tweet at a time. We often work with our clients and do a whole conversation diary. So for some of the TV shows, we'll, schedule things over 13 weeks and stick them all in, a diary or a spreadsheet and send them off to get sign off. Particularly if we want to take the humor route. There are some tweets that are pretty innocuous, tune in at 7 o'clock to watch the show. Nobody needs to prove that. But, if you want to try a joke or you want to try to play with the voice, then it takes a while. I would also say that there are some companies who need to spend more time planning what they do. Absolutely. This slapping things up because you think you're a brilliant online community manager and you know your audience, and then running out of things to say and just there's been some huge mistakes made on Twitter because somebody thought it was funny or interesting or whatever to put up a promotional tweet on the wrong hashtag. 50% off of our tablecloths #Mumbai bombings was that probably could have done it with a little bit more thought.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I sort of wonder how much of the 45 days was planning the whole voice and then how much of it was actually on the tweet itself.
Yeah, you would think it would. I mean, that amount of time would be around you would hope, a long campaign or something. But certainly everyone, jumped on that and had a bit of fun with. Had a bit of fun with 45 days for a single tweet about cheese.
Do you think what it really says is we're amused by it because we realize that businesses don't know how to talk to us, that they don't understand how to talk to their customers, that they're terrified of their customers, that the pendulum has swung so much back the other way with regards to, who has the voice now? Somebody asked me the other day, who owns social media? Is it marketing? Is it PR? Is it customer service? And I went, the customer owns social media. Like, you just fit in with what they're doing around your brand and get the relevant people involved in some ways. Yes, you can direct conversations using marketing PR. Yes, you can use social media to answer technical support and customer service questions, but ultimately the customer's a little bit bemused that these companies just don't know how to talk to them. And that tweet is an excellent example, I think, of not knowing how to talk. Forget the 45 days. I don't care if it took 2 minutes. There was no traction there. There's nothing of interest there.
Well, now it shows it's got 160 retweets and 990 favourites, but that is surely an effect of the backlash against it rather than the initial interest shown.
The so good it's bad marketing philosophy.
Yeah.
Not sure that works for everybody. Just having a look at the tweet, let me just bring it back up again. So if we go over to the screen share, and then click on that one. Sharing a camembert with friends, how generous, get the best flavour by serving at room temperature, art of cheese, and then the link. There's a few things here. That's not what I would call a genuine question. So it doesn't beg an answer, and there is no replies or responses or reshares if you don't ask a genuine question. If I ask a genuine question, I put in capitals question. How many of you out there prefer brie or camembert? Something, even though that's a pretty tragic question, at least it's a real question that some people might come back and say, I hate the smell, I love the smell, I can't get enough, I don't eat cheese, what's camembert? I don't know. But I think that asking a genuine question gets you genuine traction. And the other one is, do you think #art of cheese is something that President Cheese came up with, or do you think it's a genuine hashtag?
I mean, it's hard to know, not being in the cheese community, or if there is such a thing, um, whether that is something that cheese connoisseurs would use. I wouldn't know, but it's certainly not one that you would think has a lot of traction.
Yeah, I'm just looking here. There was
I just don't
like maybe one tweet in December and a couple in February. It doesn't seem to be a massive.
They'd be better off using something just like food, #food, or something related to what foodies would be talking about.
Oh, look, I completely agree. I mean, this is where you have to know your tribes, I think. So one of my questions would be, are you if food porn, gourmet chefs, and so on, what hashtags do they use? Maybe they don't want to use food porn because food porn has porn in it.
Maybe, probably.
But still, who's your marketing segment? If it's foodies and gourmets and chefs, then you have to use that. If you want to talk to the wine community, they could have used #Spitbucket. They could have used both those hashtags. I'm really allergic to starting your own hashtag unless it's a long, sustained campaign to own that hashtag. And TEDx has done a fantastic job over years of getting people to use the TEDx hashtag, but that's a lot of marketing reach. Dollar spend, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know about dollar spend for marketing a hashtag, but definitely.
I just mean in adding it to every email that goes out, changing all your brochures, changing all your billboards, your side of buses, maybe not additional dollar spend, but you have to change all your assets.
Yeah. And in that sense, it's worth it when you're creating something like around a show, a TV show that's ongoing. You can create a hashtag because it's going to stay with that show for as long as it continues. For like Q&A or Game of Thrones or other hashtags.
Yeah, I guess the hashtag in those cases is sort of a sustainable community. I mean, it's a bit of an ad hoc community. If the show's on, then people talk about it. But if the show's not on, then they're not as much. But cheese, I don't know. The other one I think is, you're right. If you're going to spend that amount of time on one of your social objects out of your whole conversation diary, it should be on something that's either going to challenge, be controversial, may use humor, or it's going to be part of a longer term campaign. I noticed today that Malcolm Turnbull, who's the leader of the Liberal Party here in Australia, our Conservatives, put up a funny...
Just correct you there.
No, he's not the leader. Oh my God, he will be the leader.
Tony
the
Abbott,
ex-leader of the Liberal Party.
Tony Abbott and the Prime Minister.
Yeah, I know. I just had that moment. Either I flashed back to when he was the leader of the Liberal Party, or also flashed forward to where we might go, although the rumour is it won't be him if there is a political spill shortly. But so Malcolm Turnbull, who's currently the Minister for Broadband and Communication or something, Digital Economy, put up something about Peppa the Pig, the children's show.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can find it. It was kind of an amusing little anecdote, and he said, I'm going to save Peppa the Pig's bacon and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, out of all the doom and gloom that's been coming out from our post-budget, issues around politics, it's just, it was so refreshing to see somebody with a light touch for once. But I think that particular social object, the joke, about, because the ABC is is not getting their funding, or is getting reduced funding, but he decided to make a light joke about saving Peppa the Pig TV show. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think politicians should have a sense of humour? Do you think they should take 45 days to plan their jokes?
No, they should have a sense of humour. I mean, Kevin Rudd and Joe Hockey used to certainly both get a lot of what's the word? They had a lot of public sentiment going their way when they would do the Sunrise show together, and they so however often that was, once a week or whatever, before Kevin Rudd was Prime Minister, and yeah, they would sit down together and have a chat on the Sunrise show, and that was fairly open, and they would joke together and things like that, and they seemed to get along quite well, and so I think that worked really well for both of them. Not that Joe Hockey is necessarily liked as much now as he was then, but I think it's important that they can have a sense of humour. I was just going to say as well on what you're talking about, conversation diary, and planning a schedule of social messages for a brand. That's definitely not the way it works in media either, because the same as the news is, when the news is happening, then it's just happening right now.
That's not exactly true, Dave, because one of the things we've learnt from media is the rituals of communication. So whereas I can pick up a magazine and I know that there are different sections of the magazine, some I read, some I don't. In the newspaper I read sport. I know I'm going to get the results of sports matches on Monday. I don't know, I don't follow sports. Yeah. And with radio shows, I listen to the classics, ABC classics, and I know which shows are on at what time. And I think that sort of rhythm and that ritual builds you retention. One of the reasons why we've started this on Thursday morning at 10 o'clock religiously, and I have to tell you, I turned down an appearance on the morning show to do this today and said, I'm sorry, I've got a prior engagement, is because that importance of doing it regularly, keeping people engaged, cannot be underestimated. And the challenge that I have working with companies is that they go all out. There's this short head of activity on social media where they put up everything, and then there's this slump where they don't know what to put up. So they leave their Facebook page for a month and wonder why they've got an FBO, a Facebook optimization edge rank of 0. And then when they come back, they just slap up any old thing. And, if you look at the rituals of the community, and I know I'm going on about this, but I'm passionate about it. Look on Tuesday, which is Giving Tuesday. Look on Thursday, which is Throwback Thursday. Look at certain times of the year, like Talk Like a Pirate Day, and get involved and be amazed at how the community picks you up and sweeps along with it. I think that's the key with regularity of content. Maybe that actually figuring out what those 140 characters are going to say for each and every tweet is a little bit much, but definitely planning out. Mondays we do jobs, and Fridays we do what are you doing on the weekend type stuff, and Wednesdays we do Hump Wednesday, and it's important, I think.
Yeah, but what I was meaning was news can't schedule social posts the same way that a brand might, because news happens when it happens. You can't schedule a post about the news because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and there has to be room for the vox pop and the what's happening in the community breaking news. If you've got a plan and you live in Brisbane to talk about these things for the next 2 weeks, and massive floods come through Brisbane, to ignore those floods means that you're being very cold and sticking to your diary, doesn't it? I don't know, but at the same token, having some sort of a plan. With news, one thing I've noticed with news is that they very rarely do what I call evergreen. There is sometimes what happened on this day, 5 years ago, type of things that come through.
Yeah.
There's also a history of news in pictures Twitter feed where each day they post up a photo on image. Maybe there could be some sort of rhythm or more of that sort of stuff for engagement.
Yeah, there definitely could be, if you had accounts like that, and some do, where you could schedule things like that because they're not tied to current events or news that's currently being reported, and that's less of a breaking news or a news environment, and more of a, I don't know what you would call it, but that historical stuff is, a lot of people use that, and it's useful, but it's still not news. You know
No,
what I
I
mean?
agree. It's still not news, but what I'm saying is that there is a wrapper around news of rituals to get the community engaged. Even, I think there's a I follow all the different news entities on Facebook, and one of them, I think it's news.com, every morning does a kind of a wrap-up where they say, in case you've missed it, these have been the stories, and that's useful for me. That's a ritual that I'll happily engage with, and I'd probably pay more attention to that page first thing in the morning than any others because they've just curated and made my life really easy with really simple little snippets with links out to their other articles. So there is a curation element and a ritual element, I think, a little bit to news, and there probably could be more if news wants to be part of the community and not just continually dumping the latest thing on the community, maybe.
But at the same time, you can't pre-schedule that because it still has to be built. It still has to be put together at a time when all that stuff is current. Now we have a link to this, and we can post it on social. There's no way you could, unless you had a dedicated landing page that was all about, every day the latest catch up is on this page, but otherwise each individual one of those every morning is a new article link that has to be.
All right, I'm going to call you on this a little bit. I don't want to extend it too much, but absolutely news writes stories before they happen. So when you know that the budget's coming out, there's a few different versions and there's some paragraphs waiting in the wings, but a whole bunch is pre-written, a whole bunch of stuff is done before. So if you know that there's a ritual in the community, such as the budget, you can pre-write stuff and publish it, and then you can have the outcomes waiting. And we've heard plenty of stories of accidentally printing the wrong headline, such as, I don't know, somebody won an election and they didn't, or somebody won the State of Origin game and they didn't. So there is some element of prediction, preparation of the community, getting the community on board ritual-wise around events that are happening in the community. And the best conversation calendars don't come from the marketing. They come from what's happening out there. If you've got a business women's community, March the 8th is International Women's Day. You build a conversation calendar around that. You might not actually know exactly all the things that are going to happen on that day, but you can prepare that a year in advance.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree with that. Yeah.
And I agree that, you don't know if somebody's going to bomb something or do something terrible tomorrow as well. Let's come back to social TV with Second Screen. I'm going to throw up now an image that might just help a little bit. Let's have a look. Where are we? This is something that I work with mostly with governments, but it's kind of like the baby steps of social media engagement. And if we talk about it in respect to social TV, you can kind of see where most of the steps are on. So for monitoring, this is all often the analytics, and where TV shows are just monitoring what's happening with their hashtags, so they get very excited because they had a few thousand tweets on their hashtag for the new show or whatever, and it's just monitoring. They're not engaging, they don't talk to anybody, they're just sitting there going, what's the buzz? I think in broadcast we see a lot of this, so that's often where I don't know, what does a TV show do for broadcast? They just sit there and say this is coming up and coming up next, do you think, Dave?
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of before, pre-promoting stuff, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, broadcast to me is just when stuff gets shoved out and there's no responding to questions, and you don't even ask questions, you just make statements, a little bit like that President Cheese tweet where they didn't really want to know anything from their community. They just wanted to just push out information. So, coming up next on the show is going to be blah, 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 and not engaging, I guess.
I would say that's most traditional sort of mainstream media, historically, TV, radio, television, where it is all...
Not radio. I don't think radio.
Well, traditionally, before callback and that sort of thing, it was broadcast and no feedback. Whereas radio, you might have callback now, but and TV gets, I guess it's only via the social channels for TV, but there's increasing trying to get that that conversation going. But traditionally, that's what I would have seen as broadcast, is just that pushing without any feedback.
Okay, and by the way, on that point, I want to say hello to Ashley, Big Volcano Tourism, Matthew and Erin, who are currently watching the show, and anybody else who's out there who's watching it but hasn't clicked the watching it button. See, we can do social. With viral, I often think that that's the point where the shows, and viral's sort of where they invite people to invite others to watch the show, so it's still pushing out. It's not asking for feedback, but it's share this with a friend, don't forget to retweet this if you think blah blah on The Voice was amazing. So it's like creating an outbound push sort of viral customer to customer or viewer to viewer social object. It's not really a campaign. Campaigns, I haven't seen that many lately. What do you think's been a good social media campaign around TV? Can you think of anyone? I'm talking here about viral spiked events that aren't just one tweet, but it's a bunch of things. I'm sort of a bit stuck.
Specifically on TV?
Yeah, I think so.
Just trying to think.
Didn't Big Brother or one of those reality shows invite viewers to create videos? Or I know Biggest Loser does a whole lot of stuff with their community, but it's purely online, but they invite them to lose weight and put up how much weight they're losing, and so they build a community of a marketing segment of people who are following Biggest Loser because they're interested in their weight loss stories. Maybe something like that, where it's an ongoing campaign of a few weeks.
Yeah, I think that's most of the around TV shows like that is where most of that viral action can happen, and you see when some big event happens on, or not necessarily big event, but big for the viewers, happens, that you then see a spike in social media conversation, and the virality of that extends, depending on how big an impact it was, extends to mainstream media as well, that then pushes it onto people who haven't necessarily seen the show. So something happens on
yeah, but it's that social media engagement. So a reality show brings back someone who's been voted off, and the community gets into uproar, gets their knickers in a knot, goes ballistic. Traditional media reports on the responses on social media and what everybody's saying. But is that a campaign? Like, to me, that's more of just a flow-on effect of the TV show itself. It's kill off the main character at the end of the TV series and everybody gets their knickers in a knot. I'm thinking more campaign would be 6 weeks of submit videos, submit photos, create something, build something with us, which we, will reflect back to the community. I don't know.
I can't think
Maybe
of
there's room there for some more work, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been done, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head that's happened successfully.
So here's some homework for the people watching the show live and then watching the version on YouTube or iTunes or wherever. Your job is to go off and find a campaign. So a campaign isn't where a TV station's just created a Facebook page and is slapping out updates before the show comes on or watch the show. It's where they're asking for feedback and they're doing different things and engaging with people in a short-term way. You know, like this is what we're talking about this week. I have thought of one, the Gurun transfer.
Yeah.
Sometimes does a call to action from the TV show asking the audience to go off and edit some footage that they've put up online and create their own ad from it. So that would be something that would be a short-term event or campaign that's not about just passing on the media that the media companies created, but actually asking the community to create media as well.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Now, can you see the questions in the Q&A thing?
Not at the moment.
Okay, I can see Gary and Erin have asked a few questions and are having.
Oh, I can't see them; they're not coming through. So can you repeat the questions?
Okay, let's see. Gary has asked. So Q&A have great call to actions and get tens of thousands of contributors via Twitter, but others are very poor. So Q&A is presenter-led and very highly integrated. So what are good calls to action on TV?
Oh, that's a good question. I think that one really moves up into the collaborative and people-powered shows. I mean, Q&A's still got quite a long way to go. They're probably at step 6 rather than step 7. Step 7's purely, a YouTube-style show where people are choosing what videos go up and they choose which ones to watch and they're choosing stuff for other people. There's been a few TV stations in the States that have been managed by the community that way. Al Gore owned one, but I think a Q&A is a good example of a collaborative show, and they've just started announcing the tweets on the show and then having the panel answer them. Before, the tweets were separate from the show, so you had everybody on the panel talking and then you had the tweets coming at the bottom, and now they're actually referencing the tweets and answering them. So that's an interesting shift in behaviours. I don't know if did I answer the question? What was the question, Dave? What was the nuts and bolts of the question?
So what are good calls to action on TV was the question. What are good calls to action on TV? For like the Q&A hashtag, is presenter-led. He introduces it, and then it's also there permanently visible.
Yeah. You can't have a call to action without a reward, and the reward doesn't have to be monetary or gifts or anything like that. In the case of Q&A, the reward is acknowledgement. So, I would be reluctant to ask people to go off, for instance, and create a whole bunch of videos around a TV show that then didn't reference those videos in some way. American Idol or America's Got Talent or one of those shows now has behind the contestants photos coming up all the time of people who've liked that contestant's fan page. So it's a continual, it's like a loop back of this is acknowledgement that you support us. So there's this feeling of integration with the show, collaboration with the show of I like this contestant, my photo just appeared. So I wouldn't have a call to action of coming to like the page and expect it to magically happen. But I definitely would expect a much bigger traction if I explained if you like the page, then you could appear on our TV show.
Well, that definitely happens for Q&A. The reward is people seeing their tweets live on screen, displayed on screen. So a lot of people, that is, a reward for them to see their tweet displayed during the Q&A broadcast to, the whole community who's watching, and then, get retweets or new followers out of that.
They had 64,000 tweets, didn't they, in their last show?
Yeah, I think you
And
mentioned breaking some records.
they broke the servers as well.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, they broke the servers and the records and everything for social media engagement. And I do think that the increase is because they've started to talk about the tweets on the show and not just have a call to action at the beginning and the end of the show saying, don't forget you can tweet us, but actually repeating the tweets, acknowledging the person, and then getting the panel to respond to that person is pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah. And Q&A also obviously have their video questions as well, where members of the public who aren't in the audience in the studio, every now and then they have those video questions where somebody submitted a question via a YouTube video or something like that. Have you seen that part of Q&A? So that's another bit where people are asking questions via online, basically.
Yeah. I actually thought of doing a video question, and then when I went and looked at the ABC video submission page, they don't use YouTube or anything. You have to submit it directly to them, which is that's more collaborative than people powered. I think if you put it up on YouTube and then got a whole discussion happening on YouTube, you'd probably get a lot more submissions and even more traction. But there was already so many videos up there that I got a bit overfaced and decided nobody would pay attention to my video, and I didn't do it.
Well, I'm sure you could do one that you put on YouTube and submit one to them, and then say, trying to start a discussion around that.
I could hijack the conversation by having everybody retweet my YouTube video to the Q&A producers. That would be mean, but it'd be fun to do. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Have you ever had anything appear on a TV show, Dave, yourself? Have you tweeted The Voice or The Farmer Wants a Wife or something and had it appear on the bottom of the screen?
No. I think
You don't do play it on social TV, or can't be bothered, or what?
I have before on like Q&A, but I don't watch Q&A that often because it's just not that exciting. But I also, when I do, I don't really get that much in. I've used the hashtag a couple of times, but not much.
Okay, so
and never been on screen, so I had no reward, so I just gave up.
It's like, darn it, I'm one of the 64,000 tweets that came through and I didn't make it on the screen. I'm never watching this again. And there is probably a problem around everybody wanting attention, and who do you choose? One thing I've noticed is I make it onto quite a lot of shows, and I don't know that what I have to say is anything more intelligent or witty than anyone else. I suspect that they either know me or, I don't know, maybe they've got an analytics program which says this tweet was seen and retweeted by more than 8 people, which is my average, so that might be a reasonable reason to put it on the screen. Who knows? But in the attention economy, it's going to be hard work.
Yeah.
What sort of show do you think social TV will look like in the future, whether it's second screen, how will it integrate with iPads and iPhones and Androids? What's going to be interesting call out there? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, in the questions again with Gary and Erin, Erin says that to her transmedia campaigns are more interesting, and mainstream TV.
Oh, yes.
Mainstream TV can't do that well, and I think we sort of briefly touched on transmedia last week as well. But then there's a link there that Erin's actually put to the Screen Oz Transmedia product development Bible that Gary actually wrote.
Gary Hayes' Transmedia Bible. Yep.
Yeah. So Erin put it on the chat, on the Q&A here on the Hangout, without knowing that Gary's actually written that.
Yeah. And I think Gary's watching it, so that's kind of interesting. We've got Gary's joined us as well. So Gary Hayes worked with Screen Australia to put together the Transmedia Bible, and I'm so sorry, I'm not seeing any question and answers on either the main Google Plus page or within the group chat on the Hangout, so I can't link to it at the moment. But I'll add the link into the description field later on for people who want to find it. But what's the question what's Erin's question around transmedia and cross-media type stuff? Oh, there it is, Dave. Thank you.
So what does she say? Yeah, I think I see your chat there.
I'll put it up on the screen if that's okay, and then we can have a quick look at it. Let me see. I'll just move it over here. I should have little short key shortcuts for this, I think. There we go. Screen Australia, screenaustralia.gov.au. You can download this for free, How to Write a Transmedia Production Bible. And go ahead, Dave.
On the left-hand side of your Hangout, if you click the Q&A button, that might be what that should load.
Oh yeah, I can see it. I'm writing in it, but no, I can't see anybody else's.
I think that's the chat Q&A separate button.
All right. Oh, excellent. I'm in the right area now. Thank you. I don't know how I got into chat. I thought I clicked Q&A, but clearly I clicked chat. But with How to Write a Transmedia Bible, I wonder, do people know what transmedia is, do you think?
Probably not.
How would you describe transmedia?
How would I describe transmedia?
It's sort of like an integration of lots of different screens and activities with a show, isn't it?
Isn't there also storyline, sort of taking on a journey beyond the show?
Extended storylines of the property. You know who did a good one? Mad Men. Do you remember when they had all the tweeting of the extra storylines? And it was originally done by a fan, and then she turned it into an agency, and she played all the different characters in Mad Men, and she tweeted the discussions between Peggy and all the others, and that's a really interesting way of. I don't like transmedia for purely marketing. I kind of like it for sort of extending the storyline, telling backstories. Filling fans' needs to stay engaged 24/7.
Yeah.
Does anybody out there in Q&A land have any examples of a quest of a multi-platform transmedia thing project, or anybody out there want to give some examples? I'll ask the question and I'll wait for people to type. It's going to take them a couple of minutes to type. So
I do see the comment saying presenters need to acknowledge the audience. For instance, yes. Laurel couldn't see these questions.
But I waved to people and I said hello, Erin and the others when I did find them, and actually I don't understand TV shows where the hosts don't want to know. I found it really frustrating to not be able to see these questions. To me, it's like I'm talking into an empty room. In fact,
Yeah.
you know, thank God you're here, Dave, because I simply couldn't sit down and chat for an hour to a camera where I couldn't see other people and talk to other people and find out, you know, hey, what do you think? You know, that would drive me nuts.
Um,
So, always hard when a social TV show is successful, 65,000 tweets, only 150 are shown. It's a bit like winning the lottery to get yours on the screen, but still a value proposition. Yeah, because like the lottery, you might win.
that's right. I think the next one is good though, saying that one of the issues is that so much focus is on the show and the studio audience, which is true because that's, you know, what the public is, you know, that's the broadcast that they're trying to get everyone to see and be engaged with for the massive audience. But then the invisible, or there is also a huge
Invisible audience.
invisible audience, which in the case of, you know, 65,000 tweets, you know, that is a massive. What Gary says, an invisible majority. Around most shows, I wouldn't say there's a majority over of Twitter or online conversation users during the actual broadcast of compared to viewers. But regardless, they still stay invisible to the producers of the show, who are focused on the studio activities, and so they might not appreciate the value of that engagement with the invisible audience.
Yeah. And how do producers feel about not knowing what their audiences out there in audience land are saying? There was a guy in England, Sir Ken, someone or the other, Lord Ken, Sir Ken, whatever, and he said that creating media, traditional media, TV shows or newspapers or whatever, was like crafting a bomb, lobbing it over the wall into a schoolyard, and then walking away without knowing what the damage is that you'd done.
Yeah.
And in some senses, you know, I do think some news do cause more damage to communities without realizing. And I also think that some reality shows are starting to become aware, the more they listen to their audience, of some of the damage, the things that they set up as being controversial suddenly go mad online, and there's bullying and trolling, and it's like, you created that social object, you created this divisive conversation. Don't turn around and blame social media because they played along with it, you know. Politics is the same. So this crafting and lobbying of bombs into communities and, you know, so objects, articles and stories, and then walking away, I think those days are over. We now know what the repercussions are. Maybe. That was a little bit serious, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's all right. What is Erin? I can't see if this is Erin's or Gary's comment that says
the name underneath is the name of the person.
The name underneath the comment. Oh yeah, I can see how they're connected now. Okay. And so saying someone that we could put a link into is Henry Jenkins. So Gary says Henry Jenkins runs a great blog mostly about TV and transmedia. So if anyone wants to check out a bit more about what transmedia and TV does. Oh.
Yep, Henry Jenkins is a lecturer in, somebody help me out, California, I think, at one of the big film or media universities there. So he always writes really interesting stuff. Who else is really good in transmedia, do you think? I mean, I know Gary Hayes here in Australia, and he's worked with the BBC and ABC and other organisations. I was hoping Richard Castellan could join us today, but he's probably in bed asleep because it's 2 a.m. there. Henry Jenkins. Is there anybody else? There's a few women, I think, that do stuff. I'm really interested in ARGs. I think alternate reality games mashed up with screen, whether it's a computer game or TV show or film. I love those. So alternate reality games are where you run around the physical world and do a play along. You know, like there's that zombie run at the moment where you are being chased by zombies through the city, and you have to run through a physical city. Do you know that one?
No.
Totally cool, but I love anything with zombies. And
Was-
to use it for fitness, so when you catch the train, you get a message, they know which train you're on because they've got your GPS and stuff like that, and they go, there's a zombie in the second carriage, so you have to... It's a great way to, like, you know, get off the train and run home instead of staying on the train. I'm probably a bit too lazy to play the jogging zombie run games, but I like the idea of them.
Oh no, so yeah, Henry Jenkins is Professor of Communication Journalism and Cinematic Arts at University of Southern California.
The University of Southern California, that's it. I knew it was in California, so I win the internets.
And so let's see, that looks interesting. His newest books include Convergence Culture, Where Old and New Media Collide, and Fans, Bloggers, and Gamers, Exploring Participatory Culture. That sounds pretty interesting.
I'm really interested in the gamification of TV, and I'd like to do a show on that one day, because I want to take all the work that I've done in games and really look at the difference and similarities between, you know, games, escort quests and collection quests and Dorothy games versus Alice games and all this sort of thing, and then apply it to TV because they use the same storytelling gamification techniques, and each quest line or each they call them challenges on TV has a different outcome and plays along in a different way with audiences, and you never want each week, for instance, to have a collection challenge. It's just in the same way that people hate the grind in computer games of having to collect 500 rabbits or something. So that would be an interesting one to talk about. Maybe, what do you think, Dave? Could we talk about gamification and games and employment games? And I saw an interesting blog post today which was getting employees who are onboarding, which means technical term for starting with you, the first day at work, and having them go around and collect cards. So they have to talk to different people in different departments and collect cards. And they get given a book, and then they put all their cards in the book. So it's like collecting baseball cards. But what's really funny for me is I kept thinking, I know people who do that with business cards. They go around and collect business cards of different people, and that becomes their collection. So, but you know, maybe adding points to it and leaderboards would make it more interesting. Do you play games, Dave?
I used to. I haven't for a long time. Just don't have time really anymore. But yeah, I used to play games like, you know, Civilization, or back in the day, Civilization, and some of the, you know, like Doom and other things that. But yeah, it's been a long time since I've been into playing games. Just haven't had time.
You didn't wait up at midnight to get Watch Dogs?
No. Seen the ads.
This is what happens when you grow up, get married, have children, and get a grown-up job.
That's right.
Because I'm off to play Watch Dogs after we finished here. I actually, and I'm really upset about this. We bought the game first day it came out. Do you think I've had a chance to even install it and get the updates? First world problems, but jeepers creepers.
I'm off to work after this. But no, gamification happens in news. Not happens in news, but has been as one of those things, as you know, as news innovators try to move into sort of a more marketing and increasing engagement online sort of thing. News innovators have also looked at gamification, how to use that within a news environment as well. So yeah, we could maybe try and talk a bit about that as well.
Yeah, maybe should we do it next week?
Yeah. Yep.
Good. All right, we're going to finish up now. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for watching. Thank you to the people who put in questions beforehand and also through the Q&A system on Google Hangouts. Next Thursday, I'm in Bali. I'm researching a venue for a social media event I'm running in Bali in a few months. But I'm really hoping that we still get the Wi-Fi connected. It's a good quality, stable Wi-Fi, and that I can chat with Dave next week about gamification with a connection from Bali. But having lived in Indonesia for a while ago, and I know that in some places you can't believe how fast it is. It's amazing, and it kind of depends where we're staying on that particular day. But Thursday, 10 a.m. Sydney time. I have no idea what that is in Indonesia. I think it's about 7 or 8 in the morning. We will give it a go. We will be here doing this next Thursday, 10 a.m. Sydney time. So hopefully see you then. Don't forget to submit your questions so that we can respond to them and acknowledge you. If you've been watching the show, acknowledge you here in the video. And it makes it much easier for us as well. We don't have to come up with ideas all the time what we want to talk about. This podcast and the previous ones will shortly be up on iTunes. I'm just doing a couple of things that you have to do to the codecs and stuff for iTunes. I've also got an interview coming out in the next few days, a pre-recorded interview with Colby, who's a photographer with 2.6 million followers on Google+, and he's talking about photojournalism, the shift that he's made around travel photography and why he uses social media and puts up a lot of his material for free. And he's got some really interesting things to say there around everything, not just photography, but media, social media, that sort of stuff. So keep an eye out for that one. It's well worth. I found it very interesting. Well worth watching. Dave, as always.
Thank you. Thank you, Laura.
Thank you very much.
For the chat.
Good to see you. I'm a bit disappointed that your little munchkins didn't show up.
Still out at the moment.
They're out.
Yes.
Maybe next Thursday.
That's right.
Okay.
Hopefully we'll work out this Q&A thing in the sidebar here.
Yeah, I definitely pressed it, and I definitely got the chat, which was empty, rather than Q&A. But, practice makes perfect, and that's what all this is about.
Yeah, it's all there, but it's not time-stamped, and the comments seem to be jumping around when someone adds a new one, so I'm not quite sure how we manage that. But maybe you get to manage it on your end.
Or maybe we set this as homework for the viewers.
Right.
If anybody finds a link that can teach me in really simple, easy steps how to do the Q&A sidebar thingy, I would love it. I do want to put a call out to Ronnie Binzer. If you're not following him on Google+, this guy knows everything about Google+ Hangouts. He runs Hangouts on how to run Hangouts. I haven't had time to watch a lot of them, but I have watched a few, and they're great. So I will also go through his videos, Ronnie Binzer, and see if he's done anything on running the Q&A section of Hangouts. But anyway, thanks very much, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else, and we'll see you next Thursday, 10 a.m. on Google Hangouts. I'll put the invite out shortly. Come hell or high water,
That's right.
even though I'll be in idyllic Bali, hopefully everything will work. And Dave, I'll see you next Thursday as well.
See you, mate.
Bye.
See you guys.